Okay, here's the setup, 2008 BMW 535i. This is the rear-wheel drive. I basically disconnected the intake and I disconnected the diverter valves and all vacuum lines leading up to the turbo. So what I did is I needed to drive the car for about 15 kilometers to be able to rent a garage where I can have engine support and hoist it. I've done some of the work already. I removed some of the covers, I removed the intake. I had to drive the car like this, so basically turning off the turbos. Well, you can't really turn off a turbo because it's running on exhaust. As the exhaust, if there is exhaust moving out of the engine, then the turbo is turning. But when you turn off the wastegate valves, you're reducing the rotation of the turbo. Based on what I'm seeing, short analysis, but we're about to find out, there seems to be a lot of oil coming from the turbo inlet, the front turbo. So this is the air that's going into the compressor side of the front turbo, and it's been spitting oil, as you can see, while I was driving. So the project today is to remove both turbos and replace them. I have some turbos laying around there, and yeah, covers are off. Let's get started. What I'm gonna try doing, I don't have an engine brace, but I have an engine support, so I think I'm gonna drop the subframe and I'm gonna just drop it and let it sit somewhere in there and work around it, or we'll see what comes up as we progress. Coolant needs to come off. Well, I'll drain the coolant. I'll drain the engine oil. It burnt about 1.5 liters in 15 kilometers drive. So I had to stop, top up oil, and it was a smoke show. Here's my setup. Bunch of tools, some power tools, not much, but I'll rent an air gun where I'll be able to remove the hard to get to bolts. I already removed some of the covers, as you can see there. Rusty rotors. And our friend Tim Hortons. We'll probably resort to beer after the work is done. Alright, let's get started. Alright, here we are, just about half an hour later. I removed the 4 bolts that hold this bracket that holds the wastegate actuators in place. And then I removed all the bolts that hold the turbo, the upper bolts, that is. All are removed. There it is with the flashlight. Some came out with a stud, some did not, but the easiest way on the 5 Series, 535, the easiest way is to get them from the top. And I had to loosen up the bolts that hold the bracket for the coils, the wiring, and the injectors wiring. I had to remove that, lift it a little bit, and that gave me enough room to access. So I didn't remove the bolts that hold the actuators in place, but it worked out. It worked out just fine. All right, we'll keep going. I'll walk you through it to the best of my ability. All right, just a quick note. You can see in the center of the screen, you'll be able to see the bolt that holds the engine mount in place. I recommend removing these while you're still on top. I removed both here. And I've had a little bit of a hiccup in the undercarriage, which I will show you momentarily. Canadian winter will do this, so if you're doing this in a rusty or rust-prone climate, be careful. When you get to these bolts, there are 6, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It seems like there's 5 bolts that hold this skid plate, is it? Reinforcement plate, that's what it's called. You're not supposed to drive without this. I couldn't remove these, they rusted in. That's number 1. So I had to access, well, you can see it being broken and rusted right through. This one as well. Sorry for the image quality, I'm just using my phone as I go. I'm trying to document as much as I can. Seems to be a leak. Well, there's a bunch of leaks. Anyway, we'll continue the work. The other hiccup that I had, again, for Canadian winter, most videos will show you that these would come off easy. They won't come off easy. You can see this one is not. I haven't gotten to do the one on top yet. The one in the center of the image. You can see how it's rusted through. What I used to get these is the Dremel tool, and basically what I did is I cut. You can see if I can get you a piece that I was working on. I cut this way, so parallel to the thread, and it worked for me on both. You can see cut marks there on the exhaust flange. That's the direction I was cutting. So I basically thinned out the thread that was in here, and then I heated it up with this thing, and then I got to use a screwdriver and a chisel and just chiseled it away. Now I got the one connected to the front turbo, I got that completely loose. Now the next step would be to loosen these two here to make this hang a little bit, and then we're going in with the infamous downpipe support, which is held in place by 2 bolts that are holding the bell housing in place. I'm gonna try to do my best to get them covered, or at least show you how I got to them once removed. All right, after a lot of blood and sweat, we finally managed to get the turbos out. And Jesus, what a job. I've done this before twice, and well, no, this is not fair. I've done this once at a junkyard where I just pulled out the turbos, and another time on an engine that was already taken out, so it doesn't compare. A quick, let me zoom in and get a flash. So if you have this, if you have the, yeah, you can see, it's a lot of fun. If you have this active dynamic drive, forget it. The freaking subframe won't come off. There is so much to remove before the subframe could come off. I actually went all the way to remove the wheels and the connections, the control arms, and the tie rods. As you can see, all of them are off. But when I got to drop the subframe, that's as much as I was able to drop it. But it did help a great deal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gained access. This is where the engine mount is. I would have not gained access to this. Now, the most annoying part, again, I don't know if you take some time and watch the video on the removal that I've done, or the overview that I've done when taking the turbos from the junkyard. These two bolts here are almost impossible to pull out. Well, I had to use a lot of creativity. They did come off eventually. But yeah, the exhaust is stuck until these two bolts come out, and then, well, the downpipes, that is. And then they're connected to each other. So you can't really remove one. I'm gonna disconnect them because this is just crazy. In terms of work, even to reinstall them, it was insane. So I'm just gonna remove the connection between the two. I'll just hopefully be able to remove this one with some heat, with a torch there, and just disconnect. Downpipes, well, you see one of them is really oily. Now, these are the turbos that are going into it. These are the turbos that came out. This is the back turbo. So the back turbo had a problem. It was disconnected here. So something has happened. The circlip has come off, and not sure why. So I'm pretty sure this was not spooling at all, because if this connection, well, this was completely loose. If this connection is off, then that valve is constantly open, because that's where the exhaust would choose to go. Surprisingly, not much play in it. Now, here's the fun part. This is the front turbo. You can see it is full of oil. I'm spinning the back. The shaft is severed, and these two are just completely loose. They're turning, and then now I'm turning the front. Nothing is happening in the rear. Very, very loose. So this is where the problem is. I don't know why the video got disconnected, but so I was here and the shaft is broken. The problem was with the turbo. I'm glad we found the problem. I inspected the turbos that are going in. They're in good condition. No shaft play, or very, very little shaft play. Another thing that I would recommend for you to take note of is, and not break it like I did, this is the inlet for the rear turbo. I broke this. So yeah, that's gotta suck. I don't know when I'll get time to, or how am I gonna reconnect it. Anyway, this is one hell of a job. The car is staying overnight here at the hoist rental place. I'm coming back tomorrow to wrap it up, but for now I might just put in the turbos in place and just leave it at that for now, and hope that nobody touches my tools. All right, we'll keep you posted. Okay, so day 2, and what a battle it has been. I've been challenged quite a lot by this car. It's an interesting challenge. It was fun. Highlighting issues that you might have if you have dynamic drive. So that system, all of these hoses, some of them go into the cross member, and I mean, to remove them, it's not undoable, it's doable, but it requires a lot of extra work. So I still have stabilizer bar, high pressure hose. There are some covers to put back, and yeah. So these are the O2 sensor plugs that I'm gonna try to wire to the top. This is the leveling for the headlights. Still have, as mentioned earlier, stabilizer bar to go. I don't know what that leak is, and I really hope that it was just something that spilled from the time when I opened the intercooler hose. It gushed out a lot of oil because of the turbo situation. So as you can see, even the bolt or the screw has fallen off. I'm keeping that as a souvenir. It's right here. So now more hoses to attach for the subframe. Still have the exhaust to attach, and it's gonna be interesting. Let's see how it goes. And I have these bolts. I had to lower the exhaust quite a bit to get things to line up and to remove them correctly. I had a lot of problems with this. I'm gonna have to resolve it at another time. So that's the skid plate. Well, I lost one bolt because I needed space to work. So it'll be, this will be revisited soon. But the rest of the job, I got all the clamps back except for, well, it's really hard to see from here, but I guess from the top, because that's where I loosened it, it was easy, is the inlet clamp for the turbo, the front turbo for the compressor. Anyway, day 2, progress slow, but it's going. All right.